Hi, this is Jeffrey, and today I wanted to take a look at a very interesting item I bought a few years ago on Amazon. This is the Lunar Rover with Astronaut 4D puzzle. But what is this actually? This is really a 1/35th scale model of the Lunar Rover. Now, it's not a perfect model. There's a couple of discrepancies here, but this model is actually very impressive. It's very detailed, and it's just a really unique item. There really aren't that many models of lunar rovers out there, so this one was also at a very inexpensive price. It is no longer available from what I can tell, and it's already assembled, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. But let's take a look at the box a little bit more. Now, here, this was actually part of a series. You see that there was also other 4D puzzles, such as the Space Shuttle on 747, Space Shuttle with Booster, Astronaut with MMU, and the Apollo Saturn V. Now, there was also, from what I saw, there was also the Lunar Landing Module as a 4D puzzle model. It's not on the box here, but I did have that on my wish list on Amazon. And when I bought this, that was not available, and I don't think that's available any longer either. So let's take a look at the back of the box. Now, the back of the box shows several photographs of the Lunar Rover model. Like on the front, it shows a large overall photograph of the rover. Then below, there's 3 photographs, one showing the rover in a disassembled state, and the other 2 show the rover assembled. Now, it also gives some information on the Lunar Rover vehicle. Missions were Apollo 15 to 17. It shows you the size, the wheel diameter, and the weight, and the top speed. Now, the Lunar Rover was only on the last 3 Apollo missions. They were called the Apollo J missions. The first 3 missions, or 4 missions, were the Apollo H missions, and the last 3 were the improved, more advanced J missions. And the J missions carried the Lunar Rover in a folded-up state in one of the empty compartments in the descent stage of the Lunar Landing Module. So let's take a look at the instructions of this Lunar Rover 4D puzzle model. So here's the instruction sheet. This model, or 4D puzzle, is made up of 55 parts. There is no painting or gluing required. Now, this took me several hours to put together, I believe, if I remember correctly, at least 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours, to get it all right. You know, sometimes you had to take parts off and then put them back on. But in the end, it turned out to be a really nice model. One of the most difficult parts of this model was, as you can see here, the wiring. So that was a bit tricky. And I think I may have just added a little bit of glue to keep that on. But in the end, it turned out really impressive. So let's take a look at the finished assembled model. So here we have a 3/4 view from the front of the completed Lunar Rover model. Now, the original Lunar Rovers were built by the Boeing Corporation. There was a contest held by NASA to see who can design and build the best lunar rover that meets their requirements. And Boeing was the winner, and so they built the rovers for the Apollo's 15, 16, and 17 missions. Now, there is one major error in this model, and that is the tires. Now, the tires on the real lunar rovers that went to the moon were made of a steel mesh material so that it could run over the very harsh terrain of the moon better than rubber can, because rubber probably wouldn't survive on the moon. So that is one error that is in the model here. Now, the Earthbound training vehicle of the Lunar Rover did have rubber tires, but I believe that this is really a model of the rover that went to the moon. So let's take a look at some of the parts here of the Lunar Rover. So first you have the high gain antenna. Here you have the TV camera. Here you have the 16mm camera. And here you have the LCRU, the Lunar Communications Roving Unit. Here you have the control system here. And so let's take a look at the rover from the back at a 3/4 view. So here's a view of the back of the Lunar Rover. Now, as you can see here, it does have a lot of detail on the control system. This is the low gain antenna, and these are tools that were carried on the Lunar Rover. And there was also a secondary life support system unit on the back of the seat where the astronaut was. And I believe these are magnetometer stowage bags. And now, there were 2 seats on the rover. It was very, very basic. And this model comes with an astronaut that is also removable. So as you can see in this side view, the Lunar Rover was a very, very simple machine. It was basically a frame with all sorts of equipment attached to it. The seats were very, very simple, and it was designed this way because, as mentioned before, it had to be unfolded from the lunar landing module. So in that respect, it was a very, very simple, very, very practical machine, and it really assisted the astronauts in traveling great distances over the moon for the last 3 missions. Now, what I also wanted to show is the very intricate wiring that this model has. So this was the most difficult part of the model to put together, as all of these wires had to go into the communications relay unit, as you can see here. So this model, as I said, is really quite impressive. Didn't need any gluing or very little, and it needs no painting. So let's take a look at the back of the model as our final view. So on this back view of the Lunar Rover, we can see that it's a very, very simple design. You can see the open frame here that carried the various pieces of equipment, as well as the tools required for the astronauts on their geological missions. And on the last moon mission on Apollo 17, there was a civilian on board. His name was Harrison Schmitt, and he was a geologist who also trained to be an astronaut. He was selected out of many different geologists who applied. And so the last mission did have someone on board who was an expert in geology, and that was seen as the best way to study the geology of the moon. And as one final view of the Lunar Rover model, let's take a look at it from the top down. You can see more detail of the frame. You can see more detail of the driving console. And so this is just a really nice, impressive little model for what it is. And it's a very interesting piece in my collection. Now, for anyone who's really interested in lunar rovers, I highly recommend the book Lunar and Planetary Rovers, The Wheels of Apollo and the Quest for Mars by Anthony Young. This is a very, very interesting book that goes into the detail of how the Lunar Rover for the Apollo missions were designed and built, as well as other rovers that went to Mars. So if you're interested in reading further about this, I highly recommend this book. So that's it for today, and as always, thank you for watching, and have a great day. Bye.